Hey everybody, it is Jordy from Seven Eagle Group. Today I have with me our newest team member here at Seven Eagle Group, Brenna Van Stone. So excited to have you on the team, Brenna.
I'm
And and we're gonna talk today about a lot of different topics related to military spouses. Brenna has been a military spouse in the U.S. Air Force for 17 years. She's lived on 7 different bases all over the world. And she's currently down in Georgia at Robins Air Force Base and has had an incredible career, I feel, at helping military spouses in the community throughout the years. She most recently worked with Hire Our Heroes, and we were introduced from my friend Monty over at Fusion Cell. I don't know how you guys met, but I'm grateful you did because he introduced you to us. So, Brenna, thank you for jumping on and talking a little bit about this topic. I know that's so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's my passion, and anybody who has met me knows that I can talk anyone's ear off about trying to better the lives of military families and spouses and kids, of course.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about, you mind sharing a little bit of your story, how, you were introduced into this military world and sort of what you've done over the years to help folks.
Of course. So my parents' generation was not in the military. Traditionally, we all have somebody that was in the military. Most military turns into kind of a family business. So my grandparents were in the military, and we have kind of going back those generations. My husband and I met in college, and he decided he wanted to serve his country. So he went ahead and enlisted in the Air Force, and that is kind of where we started our career. Our first almost 8 months of marriage was spent separated as he went through basic training at Lackland and tech school in the middle of Missouri. We then ended up in South Dakota, where I got my first job working for the services squadron doing their marketing. And I kind of found my love of working with the military families, planning their events, the base picnic, Discover the Hills, large events that introduced the military families to what the local community had to offer. I then bounced from there to working for a civilian ad agency. I just wanted some agency experience, having been a public relations major in college and HR in grad school. And as soon as I landed this dream job, we got orders overseas, and we spent the next 3 years in Okinawa, Japan. And I really struggled to find a job. And nobody explained to me that once you get into the NAF system or the GS system, you need to stay or you need to do the correct paperwork to do a leave of absence. So kind of same story. I ended up getting a job as a contractor with the with the Navy hospital there in Okinawa. And on the day that I got my GS job and I started my in processing, the world just totally changed. And we found out that we were moving yet again and that we were expecting our first child. So we up and moved across again back to the US for my husband to attend officer training school. So same kind of story. No one talked to me about the fact that I could take a leave of absence from my GS position and kind of or what the process would have been. I know I hadn't been in long enough to really do all of that, but there was a big lack of mentorship when it comes to spouse employment. And we have seen that change over the last few years. I spent the last 10 years since I had my first of 4 kids just being what I called kind of a professional volunteer. I would do anything from baking cookies to being a key spouse. And some of it I felt was a progression in my career, whatever that was going to look like in the future. But some of that was also, if there was help, I would provide it. So I've taken the steps over the last few years due to a few of my big mentors in life to help me really hone in on what positions should I accept as a volunteer that's going to move me forward. And that can I put on my resume and translate to civilian speak? And which ones should I just kindly do and leave off of the resume? And Jordy, as you know, what the steps I took in the last few years really propelled me from being a typical volunteer military spouse to having a lucrative career that not only makes me do the happy dance at the end of the day because I absolutely love what I do, but I get to provide for my family, and my self-esteem has, of course, increased.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's got to be so frustrating as a military spouse when you get that rug pulled out from under you, like some of those experiences you had of, you're employed one day and the next day, because your spouse is ordered to go live somewhere else, you have to leave your job. And I imagine that's extremely hard for spouses everywhere.
It is, but those experiences have made it so that military spouses and their children, really, and in some cases, when you see adult dependents like parents living with military members, we are the most resilient bunch because we have the ability to just pick up and go.
Mm-hmm.
I can go anywhere and I can make it a home. I can go anywhere, and even my introverted self can walk away with a strong network. They might not be my best friends for life, but they can be my best friends for that moment. Just like I can be put into any career position or volunteer position, and I'm going to excel because I know how to make the best about it. I know how to stay positive, and I have such an extensive network that if I don't understand how to do something, I'm not afraid to ask a mentor or a coworker or a friend from 10 years ago how to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to get so involved with helping other spouses navigate sort of this really confusing and difficult process of, finding a career, refinding a career?
Yeah, it is interesting because for somebody that was unemployed for so long, and underemployed at the positions I did have most of the time, I just saw the struggles and the self-esteem so low, especially when we were in South Korea, and the inability to get jobs. Even though the SOFA there is, so the Status of Forces Agreement, which allows U.S. military members and their families to reside overseas, the SOFA allows a lot of remote work. It's just educating people and trying to get the approval for large companies to hire military spouses. Anyways, sorry, I digressed there. But I just saw that the need to help military spouses either develop professionally or find paid employment. It really kind of helped build them up. And a lot of military families deal with food insecurity and not having enough money, which we know doesn't fix everything, but having a stable income and knowing where your next paycheck is going to come from to pay for all of your needs when the lifestyle that you choose to have is so important.
Yeah. What do you feel are some of the biggest problems, hurdles for spouses who need this employment? What's holding them back? Why is the unemployment rate for a military spouse so high?
Right. So during COVID, the unemployment rate for military spouses was sitting at about 38%. And outside of COVID, it is in the 20s. So we are one of the highest unemployed groups of the population in the US. And that doesn't account for the overseas spouses, where the unemployment is even higher and the underemployment is even higher. I think people get afraid, owners and managers are afraid to employ military spouses because of the idea that we're going to leave. And when you look at how the amount of time that a civilian employee stays with a company, it's usually less than 2 years. The military has extended the time that a family will be at one duty station. So last time we were here in Georgia, we were here for 4 years. So that could have been a solid 3 to 4 years of employment. I would be able to give my 2 weeks notice because I would know I could give more than 2 weeks notice and be there to train the person who's coming up after me. And with such an extensive network, like I said, military spouses are able to find somebody extremely qualified to fill their role as they are leaving if they reach out through their military spouse and network. So I think employers just don't understand our skill set. They don't understand the benefit of having a military spouse on their payroll. And the base in general is such an untapped, or post if you're your Army, it's such an untapped market for local employers, both for people to come and purchase their goods or their services, and also for employment. So they just need to kind of take a step back and understand that there are more benefits than losses to hiring a military spouse.
I think one of the most frustrating things for me, because we will do anything for the spouse, we consider the spouse as important as the serving member, is companies view the spouse as underexperienced or uneducated. Talk about that, where these misconceptions. I mean, so many spouses had careers before they became a spouse in the military, and they went to school, and
Yeah. So many military spouses are very educated. You're going to find a highly qualified, highly educated group. I myself got bored, so I collected another master's. I have certifications. I've just dabbled on Coursera and gotten, never took the official test, but a lot of us will use our resources that we have on base to get various certifications and education. So you are going to have a population that knows how to do, especially remote education, right? Mm-hmm. That translates directly into being able to be a remote employee. We're able to set our schedules. We understand what it takes to get the job done. A lot of times we are used to flip-flopping between tasks and making sure that we are solving issues that are not ours necessarily to address. But if there's something going on base, and we're also trying to take care of our own stuff, we're able to navigate multiple tasks within a certain time limit, and we can definitely utilize our time probably better than most people. If I can manage an overseas move, 2 weeks on vacation, visiting family in 3 different locations, and get a job all while living in a hotel room for 8 weeks.
Yeah. I can't imagine what that must have been like doing it once, let alone 7 times.
Yeah, that is some project management right there.
I think what compounds this problem is when you see employers saying, we hire military spouses. When you really dig in there, what are those jobs and what is the pay? It's these crappy jobs that are administrative in nature, answering phones, data entry, just basic stuff that pay probably less than $20 an hour on average. A lot of them go as like $12 an hour. And it's like, how does the spouse get ahead when those are the opportunities for him or her? How do you fight that? How do you get out of that rut?
That's a great question. And I've had an amazing cup of coffee made by, a pediatrician before. It's just a lot of times we fill a role that is available because it is simply available and we want to work. It's advocating for yourself, first of all, which is very hard for a military spouse because we are so used to advocating for everyone else that sometimes we either don't have enough energy left over or we just don't know how to go about it. And making sure that we are creating a network of supportive people and we're finding mentors outside of our direct military community. So if a military spouse is going to a new career field, they need to reach out on LinkedIn. They need to use their network. They need to start trying to figure out what it's going to take to be successful in that career and meet those people that are going to help them do it. That's how I met Monty. And I connected.
LinkedIn. Yeah. That should be, because now I want to sort of pivot a little and talk about some of these tips, suggestions that you have for spouses to pivot a little, get out of this vicious cycle of unemployment, get out of this cycle of low-paying jobs. So we could talk about that. But the first thing you just mentioned, I feel, is LinkedIn. I mean, everyone, you must have a LinkedIn page. It's a prerequisite for being a working professional. I feel you got to be found. You got to put yourself out there so recruiters and headhunters can find you. And so talk a bit about the importance of what LinkedIn has meant to you, and what are some your favorite tips of things people can do to build a great page?
Yeah, it took a while for me to get a LinkedIn page. It's not very common for the military to have them because the active duty members don't need them to succeed. So then the spouses don't normally have them. I joke that my sister-in-law works for LinkedIn, but it still took me a long time to actually get my account. But that helps us just widen our view of the world, our view of possible careers, especially with the names of jobs being very different in the civilian world than what they are in the military. And a lot of military jobs that we are exposed to don't exist in the civilian world. So it is making sure that you are connecting with or following even with people in different industries so that you can learn and make sure that you are educating yourself against what your natural bias is as a military spouse. I initially just started connecting with military spouses. That's not going to get me really far, right? So I had to open it up to veterans. I had to open it up to people in the different careers that I thought I'd be interested in. And through that, you learn what it takes to expand your circle even more.
Right. That's good advice. We have a really good video, I think, on how to build a great LinkedIn page on our, if you go on our webpage under About Us, you'll see the live stream there. So yeah, that's a must. Get your page, network, like Brenna said. That's how most jobs are filled, via networking. That's how you and I connected, through a common friend. So
yeah, over 80% of jobs are through a network.
Right.
And if military spouses don't build that network, then we won't find jobs.
So I imagine as a spouse, you are constantly presented with opportunities, or you're asked to volunteer on your base to help. Like, you've done the volunteer work. I assume none of it probably pays anything. So talk a little bit about how a spouse can choose wisely when they're deciding, how am I going to spend my few precious hours a day that I have available for my career? Where should that be spent? So with the end goal in mind of leveraging that to a paying opportunity.
As you know, I'm a connector of people to, whether it's resources, to jobs, to, you name it, I can connect people. I love it. That has always been something that I've enjoyed doing. So my friend Lisa and another friend Julie, they were running the Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Professional Network for South Korea. And I started getting involved in that. And I thought, okay, here I can have a tangible effect by connecting people directly to leadership development opportunities. So I started getting my feet wet in that. But at the same time, I was interested in project management. So my daughter is a Girl Scout, and her Girl Scout troop was doing their Bronze Award project. So I thought, okay, so while I'm studying project management, let me also take on this role within the troop and help them with this project. So I'm getting hands-on experience while I'm doing the Onward to Opportunity CAPM program to see if that is actually something I want to do. The project was awesome. The girls had a total blast. And that did not make it on my resume. It was great hands-on experience, and I can talk about it in an interview. But I chose to mainly focus on the fact that I worked with Osan Air Base to be a master resilience trainer and do their curriculum development, bringing in the viewpoint of a military spouse and civilian. And then also my job placement and leadership development networking with Hiring Our Heroes. So I've done everything from baking cookies to helping people with childcare to helping people with their PCS move. You name it, I have done it. Event planning on everything on a volunteer basis. But just because I did it, that doesn't mean it went on my resume. So I'm very picky about it.
You always had in the back of your mind, okay, I'm going to volunteer. There are lots of different opportunities. Let me maybe be selective with some of them because they can help sort of launch my civilian career, give me a little leg up when I go to look for that paying job.
Right. And then once I chose Hiring Our Heroes as my main volunteer route, I learned everything I could. I networked within that network to make sure that I was successful. So my network, along with my co-lead at the time, Lindsay Kennedy, we got Network of the Year out of all 66 networks within MSPN, and we were overseeing an entire country versus a lot of others that are like now at Robbins, I oversee just the Robbins chapter. So I was very purposeful in how I spent my time, while still giving my time to, I'm probably an expert chocolate chip, cookie baker, but that's.
Well, I mean, listen, it absolutely sucks that anyone really has to volunteer without getting paid. Some of those opportunities, I imagine you're more than happy to help out, like baking the cookies or helping somebody with the move or whatever. But there are others that are sort of like, oh, I think I should be getting some money for this volunteer opportunity. I know that part absolutely sucks, but I agree. If you could tailor that towards a company or an industry where you want to be, where you can see yourself, even if it's 3 months down the line, I think one of the best ways to get your foot in the door is to offer to work for free for somebody. You're much more likely to get that opportunity if you say, listen, I have 10 hours a week right now. I really want to get into fill in the blank, and I would love a chance to work remotely or for you and show you what I can do. And then you get in there, you bust your butt, and you can probably leverage that to an opportunity if you do well.
You can. And you have to make sure to ask for a written job description, right? So you're meeting not only their objectives, but they are meeting your own objectives, because it goes both ways. Make sure you're doing a written letter of recommendation, and that they are doing a recommendation on your LinkedIn, because a lot of companies now will just simply read what other people have written about you, and they don't ask for a formal letter of reference when you're applying for jobs. So make sure that when you are volunteering, you are receiving just as much as you're giving.
Right. And I mean, there's so many military related organizations, I would think, that would love to have the extra muscle on hand, the extra resources. And even if it's only, a few hours a week or whatever, when it goes on your resume, it's not standard practice to have to put, I worked 40 hours at this job, or they paid me $12 an hour, or I worked for free. You don't need that. It's more about the experience and what you did. And I love your advice of sort of tailoring that to the civilian world. I mean, even something about helping somebody with their move, you can write that in a way that a civilian hiring manager can read that and see the correlation of, oh, I see the skill sets that can be applicable.
Right. So if you go to bluestarfamilies.com, they have a whole booklet that shows you how certain volunteer positions you do on a base can be translated onto your resume. So that is a great place to start for people that are a key spouse with the Air Force or an FRG leader. Make sure that you are taking the military speak of key spouse and you're changing it into something that a civilian is going to understand. So a military family liaison project manager would be a better title than key spouse. Make sure that you also are taking resumes that you find of jobs that are of interest to you, print those out, and highlight what you are currently doing. I think it's the red, yellow, green stoplight idea. So print those out and say, okay, let's say I want to be a project manager, and then print out a bunch of project manager resumes or job descriptions, job postings. And red, you're not good at that. Yellow, you're kind of good at that. Green, you are a rock star. And then you can kind of see where you fall on the civilian sector. And if you are just at a point in your life where you can only volunteer, because sometimes we're either in a duty location where employment isn't available, or you're like me and you have 4 kids, and at the time, like, it was just easier to stay home and volunteer, uncountable hours. Just make sure that what you're doing is lining up with civilian job postings, and use the language that's written in those to update your resume.
Yeah, that's good advice. And don't be afraid to create your own position for somebody. Don't, just because it's not, if you don't see a particular job, that every company in America is always looking for good talent. So don't be intimidated if you don't find job opportunities. Just sometimes it's better to go after a company who is not advertising because you're going to stand out. If you see a job description, you might be one of 500 people that are applying for that.
Yeah.
How do you, something you mentioned earlier, which I love, which was sort of along the lines of becoming like, skilled, really learning a craft, and you were taking classes at Coursera and doing other stuff. Talk about how important that is for a spouse, really anyone, to become an expert in a field so you can improve your marketability.
I think especially as a spouse, like I said, I've got 4 kids. I love my kids, but I want to have something to talk about other than my kids. So that's kind of been, I guess, one of my outlets for taking different courses is so that I can speak intelligently about something when my kids are playing. I mean, we've all done the mom thing. If you are currently a mom, we've done it. We understand. But let's have something to talk about. So let's talk about Coursera and how you have a passion for HR. So what courses can you take on there? And a lot of, I think it's probably about once a year, you'll see a lot of posts on social media about Coursera giving free access to military spouses. So make sure that you jump on that when you see them come around. It's kind of like having the free LinkedIn account premium for 1 year. The military members also kind of face this when they enter the civilian world. The work that they've done as active duty doesn't translate to the civilian. So I think a lot of times we don't, as military spouses, we don't understand that we need to get those certifications to be successful and kind of set us apart. We all live job experience, which we get from volunteering, but we need to make sure that we have something else solid to kind of match with that so that we can give a complete package.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many opportunities to get that knowledge and those experiences remotely now. I mean, you could take classes for free at Harvard, I believe, and other schools, and Coursera and Udemy. There are thousands of opportunities. You go onto YouTube, you type in how to fill in the blank, and you'll find dozens of videos that, if you want to make that investment in yourself, it goes a long way,
Yeah. And people want to mentor others, and it is very hard for a military spouse to ask for that mentorship.
Right.
But some of my most memorable conversations have been sitting down with a fellow military spouse, or a lot of my great mentoring I got when I would go on runs. So I had a group of ladies that I would run with, and that is kind of when we worked through our different processes of life and how we're going to be successful at our next duty station.
Right.
And also stay in contact with people, because we do move around so much. It is easy to lose track, but with social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, if anyone still has MySpace out there, I love you for that. Making sure that you're staying in contact with people, because you may not benefit directly, but you can always make connections with others. And there's nothing more powerful than connecting to other people and then watching success come from that. Because I believe that if you give to others, then you will receive. You just have to give
back. Yeah, that's what I love about you, is you're constantly helping. You're always putting the other person first, and I love that mentality, because it does come back, and that's just so important. How has COVID helped or hurt the military spouse? One thing I've seen is companies are getting much more comfortable with remote workers. Has that impacted, you feel, the unemployment among spouses, giving them more opportunities, less?
I think that more opportunities came about to justify remote work, but with a lot of times the base schools or the base command being more strict than the civilian world outside of the base when it came to COVID lockdowns, a lot of times the active duty member and would still be at work, but the spouse would have to be, or partner would have to be at home with the kids. So I think that even though remote work became a bigger possibility for people, we were more confined to our homes, our units, and we became teachers and nurses, and whatever you do at home to survive.
Yeah. One of my frustrations in working in this industry over the last 8 years and in helping spouses is, you referred to it earlier, is all these great character traits that a spouse has, like that might not seem like a lot to the spouse in the heat of the moment, like another move. Oh my gosh, if I have to unpack another box or whatever. But all those skill sets and character traits that made you who you are over these last years has enormous value in the civilian world. And I get very, I don't know what the word is, frustrated, disappointed when I talk to a spouse and he or she says, I'm just looking for anything. I just want a job. And then they're going to take that job paying $12 an hour doing data entry, and I like, oh, set your sights a little high. There's so many great opportunities out there, but you got to get out of that sort of belief that all you can do, oh, I haven't worked in 12 years, so all I can do is answer phones. They got to get out of that and I don't know, just have bigger goals for themselves where when they do get that civilian career, it's going to pay them a living wage, something that,
Yeah.
justifies it.
Yeah, my babysitter right now charges $15 an hour, but if I were to go get a job answering
Right.
phones, I would be paid 12. So where
Right.
is the there's a huge disconnect, and a lot of times you're right, we do just take it because it's available instead of advocating for ourselves. So it's teaching people how to do their elevator speech. How do you speak intelligently about what you have accomplished and how that's going to translate? Start off with where you are going. No one needs to know where you've been, right? They can see the dirt on your shoes. So let's find out where you're going and how you see yourself helping that company. It's unfortunate that a lot of times, like you said, companies will just target military spouses for the low paying jobs. If I had $1 for every, hey, would you want to answer our phones virtually for $10 an hour, like message I got, I would probably be able to retire. Like it is sad that they pigeonhole us and then also try and take kind of.
Yeah, I would love, my advice for a spouse would be, ain't set big goals for yourself. Go after something awesome because you deserve it. You've sacrificed for our country just as much as the serving member your family has. And now you deserve something great that's going to pay you well and make you feel like you're making a difference and all that stuff. And use this opportunity to prepare, do those, if you have to do volunteer opportunity, pick wisely, as Brenna said, pick a good company that's going to look like it's going to help diminish that gap, right? You want to avoid that situation where the hiring manager looks at the resume and says, well, what have you been doing for the last 7 years? Oh, you've been just taking care of your kids. You want to avoid that. And you could avoid that with the volunteer work and you could avoid that with the constant learning and improving, and focus. Like we're big into cybersecurity and IT. I mean, you could train in 3 months. You can get a certification from home to be to enter the cybersecurity industry, where your entry job is going to pay you $60K. Go after that. Don't go after I just want an admin job. I'll do anything.
Yeah, because your self-worth is tied to that.
Right.
And if you're going to spend 3 months getting a certification, don't let it be medical billing. Like, let it be something that is tangible, because we do get emails also as a military spouse, like, hey, you could be a medical transcriptionist. And like, for some people that is great. Like, that is a great work from home job. So I don't want to knock that, but also see what are the upcoming careers and where you can set yourself for the future. So don't look for the here now job. Like, let that be your volunteer. That's going to be your passion and help propel you. But keep your sights on what is going to help provide for you and your family, because retirement and separation from military families is difficult. So make sure that you're setting yourself up and creating a network that's going to help you succeed.
Correct. Yeah. Build that network. That'll be your not safety net, but the people who will be in your corner to help you. I like people focusing on remote opportunities, especially if you can envision yourself maybe being in service for several years. Why do you want to go get a sort of a brick and mortar type job wherever you're based, only to have what happened to you, Brenna? Like, do it wherever you're living is going to be irrelevant to the industry you're working in, or even the company,
Yeah.
And I think that gives you a little bit of protection, a little bit of, you can sleep a little better at night. I can't imagine when you were employed, the anxiety of like, oh crap, if we have to move again, I'm going to lose this job,
Yeah, and spouse employment has come a long way in the last dozen years. It's been exciting to watch. Uh,
Mhm.
and on the flip side, like volunteerism does propel the military, community forward. Like that is
Right,
something that is so great about the military community is people know how to step up. We know how to solve a problem, and people
right,
aren't afraid to give their time. So if you
right,
are a military spouse that is in that situation like I was, where you are happy just volunteering, like good for you. Like I 100% support you, and I will help connect military spouses to like volunteer work they find meaningful.
right,
Sometimes that is just what they are passionate about. But there's
right.
also a lot of great nonprofits that will pay you to do that volunteer work.
Absolutely. Get your foot in the door by offering to do it for free and say, hey, let me prove myself. I'll work for the next month. If you like what you see, can we then talk about converting this to a
Yeah.
paid job?
Or I
And
will
people,
answer phones for you for
yeah,
$12 an hour, but I will only do that Tuesday and Thursday. The rest
yeah,
of the 3 days, like I want to be doing project management. Like,
yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah,
That's really good. And uh, I don't know. I'm so happy there are sort of people like you out there in this community who are really the, you know, championing our spouses and but also don't, as you mentioned, don't hesitate to reach out to anyone, civilian or in the military community, because I'm a civilian, and if any spouse ever reaches out to me, I'm gonna get on the phone with him, or I'm not gonna blow it off, you know. So don't be scared. Don't You got to put yourself out there a little bit. You got to be willing to make those introductions for yourself, because good things happen when you do that.
and there's so many amazing organizations and people.
Yeah,
Got the USO and their transition assistance program, their pathways. They help spouses. You've got Hire Heroes USA. You've got Hiring Our Heroes and the military spouse programming, and then really just learning to advocate, like I said.
yeah.
And
No,
I know, Shorty, we've talked about this for most of our conversations just end up being how we can help military spouses.
yeah,
But it's a great community, and it is. I would not want to be anyplace else.
yeah. Well, I'm deeply committed to helping the spouse community. In joining your efforts, one of the reasons you joined us here at Seven Eagle is to help us find more spouses who we can put into great careers in cyber and tech, and help them get training and all that, because we believe that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And but it's not charity. I mean, these companies are going to get superstars, as you mentioned, and that's the best part about this. Everyone's winning, you know, and there's just a lot of work to be done. But we're super excited to have you on the team, Brenna. Thank you so much for all this good advice, and I encourage anyone who's listened to connect with Brenna and me on LinkedIn, and uh, whatever we can do to help you, we're always here for you.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to meet you all. And yeah, I've got open office hours on Wednesdays. So
All right, good deal. Thanks everyone for joining us, and feel free to reach out anytime. We're always here for you. If you are interested in our services at Seven Eagle, just go to seveneagle.com and join our talent network, and that'll get you on the radar of our 30 plus recruiters here. And we work with anybody in the community or anyone in the business world who is interested in hiring talent. We will do whatever we can to make those connections for people. So please leverage our resource as well. Thank you.